Welcome to Books in the World. Produced by Cape Cod Writers Center and Cape Media, Books in the World is one of the longest-running literary interview programs in the country, enjoying over 40 years of cable broadcasting. I'm your host, Kathy Aspden, and today I'm here with author Juliet Graims. Juliet Graims is the national and international best-selling author of The 7 or 8 Deaths of Stella Fortuna, which was a finalist for the New England and Connecticut Book Awards and has been translated into 9 languages. She is the recipient of the Ellery Queen Award from the Mystery Writers of America and Italy's Cetraro Prize for contributions to Southern Italian literature.
Your pronunciation is impeccable,
Is it better?
Kathy. It is so good.
Today we're here to talk about Juliet's second best-selling novel, The Lost Boy of Santa Chionia. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. The story, we'll tell you a little bit about it, takes place in 1960 in southern Italy, where a young woman, Francesca Loftfield, arrives in a small, isolated, mountainside village of Santa Chionia to open a nursery school. There's no road, there are no doctors, no running water or electricity, and thanks to a flood, there isn't even a post office. This is where the mystery begins. After the flood, a human skeleton washes to the surface, and the local priest's housekeeper begs Francesca to help her find out if it is the remains of her lost missing son. So, thank you for coming today.
I'm so excited. It's really nice to return.
Oh no, this was wonderful. We had a wonderful interview about your first novel. It was fabulous. Okay, the premise of The Lost Boy. Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Okay.
So I am Italian American. Sometimes people can't tell when they look at me, but then I start talking with my hands, and then they believe me. But I'm the grandchild of immigrants from southern Italy, and my first novel, The 7 or 8 Deaths of Stella Fortuna, was a fictionalization of immigration narratives that I had learned from my family and interviews with people around my family. I knew I wanted to tell that immigrant story. Mm-hmm. And it was deeply personal to me. I worked on that book for 10 years, and over the course of that time, I interviewed over 100 members of the Italian diaspora. And I was not even done writing Stella before I knew what this book was going to be, because of this one anecdote that came up again and again during these interviews, which was someone would sit down and they would tell me, oh, my mother's brother or my father's uncle or my great-grandfather, whoever it was, sailed off for America and was never heard from again. Mm-hmm. And it would really bring up the hairs on my arm, because I know that I have missing men like that in my family. My husband has missing men like that in his family. It's this collective trauma that a lot of us children of immigrants have, where someone in our past was lost. We don't know what happened to them. We don't know if we should be, grieving for them because they were, died doing dangerous work that immigrants were often made to do at this time, or perhaps they were victims of another one of the very dangerous aspects of life on the margins that they were subjected to, things like organized crime or disease, and they weren't always able to read and write or to touch base with their family and let them know? Or should we maybe be mad at them?
Right.
Did they run away from home? Were they scoundrels? Did they abandon their families? And I just thought, I'm looking at that, I'm like, that's a mystery novel right there. That question of what happened to Uncle Dominic.
Absolutely.
So the story of The Lost Boy of Santa Chionia was born out of an homage to our missing immigrant forebears, and also sort of an interrogation of their lives and what might have happened to them.
Right. I mean, most families found out if their loved one at least made it to the United States.
Yes, usually.
Not
always.
But sometimes the mystery began on the ship.
Yeah,
on the crossing.
Yeah.
Wow, I know. Well, in your background with your Italian roots, did you always know that you were going to end up writing something in this genre?
My whole life, I dreamed specifically about writing about my immigrant antecedents. From the time I was really close to my grandparents, and I was 6 or 7 the first time I tried writing a novel, and at that time it was about my grandmother's life, you know. So it was always a dream for me, and I think for me writing about the diaspora and becoming a writer have gone hand in hand. While I've pursued other things, and you know, a career as a book editor, but it was always boiling away there. And there's so much of Italian history that's fascinating that isn't written about, and that to us Americans, a lot of us have Italian roots.
Oh, I mean, when you look at the amount of exodus from Italy to the United States and the periods of it.
And I just also want to say for the record, for those of you out there who maybe don't have Italian roots, that we are accepting converts. So.
I have a friend she's actually lives in America, but she was born and lived in Italy most of her life, and she said the opposite. She said, we're not accepting anybody. If you're not already Italian and you don't already know it, we're done.
But you can be Italian American.
Yes, you can be Italian American. Okay. Well, in that kind of, I know that the setting was mirrored from Calabria.
Yes, that's right.
And which Calabria has a beautiful flavor of village suspicion and tight.
For sure.
Yes, yeah. We're not going to tell you anything that you don't already know, and we might actually tell you something that's not true.
One time when I was first researching Stella, my first book, I decided to go to Ellis Island, and I happened to be riding the ferry over there with an Italian couple, tourists, and I met them, and they're like, "Oh, where's your Italian family from?" I said, "Calabrians." And said, "Oh, no. Calabrians, they are very suspicious." And then they proceeded to run me through the generalization of every region in Italy. But this is what I want to say.
Did you grab a notebook? I mean, I would have had to.
I did. I had one on me. I've made many of those notes. But this is the thing about that accusation of being suspicious. The Calabrese have had things taken away from them for 2,000 years. They have a lot. Calabria means fertile land. Calabria from Greek, which is. It used to be Greek. In fact, it still is Greek, which comes into the book in a lot of ways.
But let's get to that. Don't forget that.
Well, don't worry. But this is the thing. Imperial forces, raiders, pirates, they've come in and they've tried to take these riches away. So you have this culture of self-protection, of suspicion, and perhaps this culture that you would say is a little resistant to authority and maybe prone to an endemic organized criminal syndicate. Like the 'Ndrangheta, which is in fact one of the world's most dangerous organized syndicates. But the other thing I want to say about Calabria is when you've had people who've had such a tough time throughout history, you have people with an amazing sense of resilience and an amazing sense of humor.
Right.
They are so funny. And one of the reasons I love writing about my grandmother's people and their roots is because there's so many funny things to say while you're picking through all. Well,
the humor really shows through in this novel.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely, and at first, because it's a mystery, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be finding it that funny. And then I was like, oh no, this is funny. These characters are characters.
That is the highest possible compliment, so thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I know that you ended up staying in Calabria for a while to do the research. So tell me a little bit about that.
I've done multiple stays there. The one that was really formative for this novel was in December of 2019. And so I'd had the whole plot sketched out. I knew who the characters were going to be, and I knew how the murder was going to happen, but I hadn't picked exactly where I wanted it set. And so I I knew there's this mountain range in the deep south called the Aspro Monte, and it's where the 'Ndrangheta, this Calabrian mafia, was born. And I knew that there were going to be organized crime threads relating to the murder and the disappearance of immigrant men because I wanted to reflect that reality. So I thought I wanted to look around the Aspromonte. And just looking at that word, aspro and monte. So monte is Italian for mountain, right? But aspro is Greek for white. So you have this portmanteau of the two languages, right? And it is these two linguistic cultures that are so rich there. There are still villages that speak Greek, a language called Greco. It's ancient, it's 1,500 or 2,000 years old with threads of classical Greek in it, and they've kept this culture and tradition alive. It's amazing. And I thought, that's where I want to go. I want to look into this enclave. So I in December of 2019, I went there. And I stayed in a ghost town in an absolutely deserted mountain village, which was turned out to be very remote. And I was setting up interviews with locals, and especially I wanted to talk to Greco native speakers.
Right.
So I after
Did you say with somebody?
Yes, I didn't say, but yes, a friend of a friend knew a local musician, a bagpipe player, a 28-year-old man who is also a native Greco speaker, and he was amazing because he helped me with interpretation when the dialect got too difficult for me to parse, and he also had a lot of opinions of his own, and he drove me around these mountain villages. We had an incredible adventure. I'm not saying that any of the gangster characters in my book may have been modeled after him. Oh. He's spectacular. But he introduced me to this like really project turning meeting with a woman who was at the time 94 years old. Oh my goodness. And her name is Maria Volonta, and I used her name in the book for an important character. Yeah, yes. Volonta, yeah, you recognize it. And so, she was born in 1925, and a native Greco speaker, just grew up during this time. Never handled money until she was 30 years old, was working in post-feudalism, and just this absolute beacon of light about this way of life in southern Italy, this relationship with the land and the seasons, and also with your family, against all this hardship in her history. And I loved hearing her stories. And so after I met her, and she really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I had a whole bunch more interviews, very incredible, couple weeks that also involved accidentally, going to lunch with a group of gangsters, but I'm not supposed to tell that story on TV, so I'm just going to refrain at this point. But it was really incredible. These people just wanted me to write about their land as much as I wanted to. Yeah. And then the pandemic happened, and she kept in touch with me all those years by WhatsApp. Wow. She and her daughter, and I'm happy to say I just got back from her 100th birthday in February. Goodness. She gave me this. It's a Greek cross by a Greco jeweler.
How wonderful is that?
They were such a gift to me to meet Maria and her daughter Antonella. And
you hear those beautiful stories that research leads to beautiful relationships and lifelong relationships.
I mean, she told me things that you can't get out of a book. For example, when she was growing up, this is the thing: feudalism ended in Italy in the Napoleonic era 200 years ago, but no one told the peasants who were living on the land that. So when she was growing up, her parents were told that they had to raise a hen in their house that they fed out of their own meager wages and furnish the egg the hen laid every day to the baronial landholder.
Oh,
the only time they were allowed to keep the egg was if their baby was sick, and then they could roast the egg for the baby. But I mean, literally, I heard these stories about how people like my grandparents were taken advantage of by this system. And it really clarified why they had felt they needed to emigrate, why the towns they came from are now ghost towns, these gorgeous, swaths of rich, fertile mountain land. And there's a lot of poignancy to it. And so talking to the people who were left behind, as well as, all the immigrants who fled, whether they were forced to or chose to, it was a really important part of building
in that remote type of area. You're not going to get the news. It's kind of like you're not going to find out the war has ended. No. You're not going to find out that. So it definitely changes what you hang on to. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that story of your special relationship with her. When you were so that tied into this plot where she was viewed with so much suspicion. She was coming to Santa Chionia to do what she thought of as a mission of love, opening a preschool for children, and even just getting children to enroll. It was an act of God, and she needed to be sanctioned by somebody. She needed the priest to be on her side, or she needed the Don to be on her side, or but those types of suspicions, and then that kind of behavior fed into the way she felt about this lost boy whose skeletal remains they found. Yeah.
Francesca, so this book is set in 1960. I knew when it was going to be set because Francesca Lawfield is a fictitious character, but I drew the strokes of her life from an actual woman. There was an American named Anne Cornelison who lived in the south of Italy for 20 years working for the charity Save the Children.
Okay.
And she would go into villages that were really struggling with post-war reconstruction, and that's what they would do. They would try to build a nursery school thinking that hygiene and health for the children is a sort of weapon toward introducing peace and prosperity for struggling families, right? And Anne Cornelison left this wealth of diaries, memoirs, and novels that she wrote about her time, which were so important to me when I was researching my book. But I also thought to myself, as I was reading them, here's this well-meaning outsider, really very privileged young woman with absolutely no right to be meddling in these people's personal lives, right? But in the course of doing her job, I mean, humanitarianism looked different in 1960. She's supposed to be going into their houses. She's collecting their data about how much income they have to see if they're eligible to be part of her charity work. She's vetting them on where they keep their livestock in case. All of these
completely
things,
invasive.
Right? They seem so paternalistic to us now, but at the time this was how things were done. And I was like, who would be the absolute perfect mark, right? If to be a well-meaning problem solver, perhaps in you know, amateur sleuth in the case of something gone terribly wrong in a village, who might not realize that she just shouldn't be meddling.
Oh no, every question she asked was met with
resistance, right?
But then when she didn't ask a question, information was fed to her. You know, it was kind of like a little bit of like, oh, we think you need to know this, let me tell you this. But they would tell it to her in a sideways way so that it wasn't like direct information.
It's amazing that you pin that. Because when I'm trying to develop this detective character. And so as she's walking through what a murder investigation looks like, I was like, what would she do now? And I will tell you, I came up with what she would do because I feel like I've had to become a detective over the last 10 years to write, you know, to interview people and learn about the diaspora. I've had to become this immigrant detective, so I'm just writing myself into the story there. Like,
well, you weren't trying to change anything, so you were probably very welcomed in the area when you came. I mean, of course, that much time has passed too since the 1960s. But just the fact that you were saying, I want to write your story, I want to write this story, and I want to have it be authentic.
So people certainly are looking for representation, and there was a lot of friendship there. But also, did we touch on the fact that the Calabres are really suspicious? I can't remember.
We did. That actually was on an opening line because it is really true. I mean, I have a Calabres grandmother.
You know all about it.
I know, yes,
So there's definitely the level of trust that you need to develop, a rapport with people before they let you in. And when they know that you can trust, that they can trust you and that you're going to try, like that I was there to represent what they'd been through and not to describe them as criminals, which is, I mean, they're so used to being talked down about, right? But you really hit the nail on the head when you said sometimes, instead of asking the question, when you don't ask the question, is when people start to feel that they can trust you.
Right.
You know?
Right, exactly. One of the things about that you did that I really felt was seamless, the way you wove this love story into it. Because, her background was again, not open for us. There were little bits of information dribbled out that gave us a little bit of inside information about why she was there, why she, you know, her previous life before she came. And as a reader, we were hoping for the best. You know, we wanted her to have a full life. We wanted her to have
well, thank you. I'm glad.
We actually at times wanted her to just live through the day, frankly.
Right.
Yeah.
Just make better choices, Francesca.
Make better choices. Exactly.
Well, you know, this is the thing. She was in a remote mountain village that was just full of shepherds. And if there's one thing you should know about shepherds, they get a lot of exercise and they can be extremely fit. So I just thought to myself, I feel like there might be a handsome young man in this village.
Yes, and he was a handsome young man too. And of course she resisted it, but he just, and because he was smooth without being a player, we weren't sure how to root. That was a wonderful way that you did that. Let's talk a little bit about the process of, I know your first novel was like a 10-year journey.
Yeah.
How long did it take to write this one?
7 years, but
7 years.
you know, there was overlap. So I first drafted this book in 2017. I wrote through the plot beats, and that was the point at which I thought, something didn't feel right. I think I didn't have the setting right.
Yes.
I was going to set it in a very similar village to Stella, but I was like, no, I need to do more setting research. You know what my other thing was? I wrote it in the third person. And I just felt that something hadn't unlocked in the storytelling. And then I came back to it, as I mentioned in 2019, I did that research trip, that really helped. But what really crystallized for me the path for this book was the pandemic.
Right.
So it was June of 2020, and the world was in total disarray. We didn't know, the decisions we were making on a day-to-day basis just didn't make sense, right? We're looking to our leaders for guidance, but they don't know what's going on either. And I work for a small company that is maybe going to be in danger because of the month-to-month billing cycles, all of this insecurity. And I had a relatively easy time of it, right? I'm looking at everyone, and I thought to myself at this time, I want hope.
Right.
I want to know that I need to find a way to renew my energy and my compassion for all the people around me who are struggling, and to remember that it's so much harder for other people, and that ultimately today I can go out and I can still do good for the world, even though I feel like the world is crashing around me. That is what Francesca became for me. Like that is who she is. She is doggedly in this village. She's trying to make life better for people who are struggling.
Oh no, there was nothing self-serving about her.
I mean, at all costs, right? And then so when she hits a wall, she doesn't give up. She finds a hole in the wall, or she makes a hole, or she, and that for me, that's where it came together. I knew I needed to tell the story in first person, and I needed to make it about her journey toward finding compassion and kindness, finding the ability to invest herself in that over and over, and not give up,
She also has a friend in the States.
Yes.
And her friend actually becomes, a co-detective with her. Yes. And
Alexis Kelly.
But then there was the postal issues all the time.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It continues to be a problem.
It continues to be a problem, I can imagine. Yeah. So she, and that actually gave us a different glimpse of her life.
Yeah.
Is to meet that character as well. What was your favorite, when you were doing the character breakdown, was there a character that you were so in love with that maybe we wouldn't think, please don't tell me it's the shepherd.
No. No, it is Francesca's landlady, Chica.
Yes. Oh my gosh, she was wonderful.
Yes, she has Francesca is unfortunately forced to live with this woman who absolutely despises her.
Right.
Is constantly pranking her. It's a 70-year-old woman who's been used to living.
Setting her up all the time.
I mean, all the time, meddling, and this is a woman who's used to living alone and is not happy to have to be renting her spare room to this American and her, American ways. And I knew that I needed a Holmes-Watson duo where the pair is working together despite themselves. Right. And Chica just gave me so many story gifts.
Right. And the relationship they end up with is totally different than what they start out with.
I just want to say, for the record, she is in no way based on anybody I've ever met in real life. No one I've ever met is like that. I don't know.
She had some traits of some people I knew. Well, she was wonderful. She was a wonderful character, and the things that she ended up teaching her. Just the cooking. Also, let's talk about the food. So being able to infuse the story with food that is in the region, and that was really, really nice as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I like to eat. This is one of my biggest problems is when I'm reading fiction and there are two characters and they're sitting together and they're having a really important conversation. at a table and the author doesn't tell us what's on the table between them.
Right.
Okay, and I just think that as an
Right.
Italian, it's my cultural burden
Yeah.
to make sure
Yeah.
that everyone reading my books knows what everyone is eating at all times.
Exactly.
So, important part of the research, I ate a lot of food on your behalf.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, but
Well,
also my friend Maria Volontas, she helped me a lot with that, like what they made at that time in in what season and how it was made.
Right.
And in fact, she and her daughter, during the pandemic, they would video themselves cooking so that I could see what they were doing. Yeah, and then they would demand that I video
how wonderful
myself
is that? Oh my gosh.
reproducing the recipes.
And were you any good at it?
No, I'm a terrible cook. But if you want the recipes that they gave me, they're up on my website.
Oh,
so if you
fabulous.
wanna
Well,
cook
let's talk about your website right now. So you can be found actually on julietgrames.com.
Yep.
And also you have a pretty vibrant Instagram page at Juliet Grames.
Thank you.
We only have about another minute for a question, but you're working on something else.
I am.
Is it at all? Does it take place at all in Italy?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm working on 2 things. I can't tell you. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, good, because I think we have enough time for you to not tell us.
Great.
Okay. But we'll keep our eye out for it.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Yeah,
much,
no,
Kathy.
thank you. This was wonderful. Like I said, I probably have another whole page of questions. It's lovely to talk to you again. Well, thank you for watching this episode of Books in the World. You can visit us to see these episodes and many more on CapeCodWritersCenter.org and also on our YouTube page. Cape Cod Writers Center has a conference every summer in Hyannis that is from July 31st to August 3rd this year. We have wonderful presenters, and we would love for you to look on our website and perhaps visit us here on beautiful Cape Cod. Thank you so much.